In this clip, I'm going to talk about the Cloudism, your story is not my story. And Cloudisms are phrases that I have either invented or coined as a way to translate feelings or concepts that can serve us as a tool, as a healing tool, as a self-soothing tool. So I'm going to talk about the 5 ways that your story is not my story is helpful. And this phrase isn't defensive. It's not like your story is not my story. It's not defensive. It's actually to self-soothe. So the first way it works is for internal self-talk. Okay, so it says, I get to have my own story. And an example of that is, let's say you're pregnant and someone says to you, oh, my labor was so intense. It was so bad. I had a terrible pregnancy. You get to say in your head, your story is not my story, because you get to have your own pregnancy. Or, oh, I traveled to that country. It was so hard and the planes were always late. You get to say in your head, your story is not my story. I personally love saying when people say, oh, the Comcast guy is always late, or I hate going to the DMV. I love saying in my head, your story is not my story, because people at the DMV were really friendly and helpful, and the Comcast guy was early. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, it calms anxiety. So those examples are great examples of people can have a horrible experience in their own life about something, about grad school, about relationships, about dating apps, about in-laws, about raising teenagers. It's endless. And you get to say, your story is not my story. You get to say, Mom, your story is not my story. So it calms anxiety. Number 3, it calms comparative anxiety. I remember wanting to sell my house in 2008, and everyone kept saying to me, oh, the economy is so bad. The economy is so bad. I couldn't sell my house. My house was on the market forever. And I kept thinking, your story is not my story. Because the anxiety of comparing myself with that person, comparing that I might lose, that I was inferior, right? The superior-inferior comparison. So I kept saying, your story is not my story. And I kept saying, I don't need the economy. I just need one buyer. And I found one buyer who loved my house and paid $40,000 more than what I was asking for. So there was my story. Number 4, you get to individuate. And this is a high psychological term that basically means that we get to be our own person, that we create, that we form, that we design, separate from our family of origin, from our ancestry, that we get to pick and choose who we want to be from our family of origin, from our ancestry, from our culture. I get to create my own story and individuate from my mom, from my dad, from my culture. I get to be the individual that I am. So if mom says, all men cheat, or my experience with that culture, that race, that ethnicity was like this, you get to say, your story is not my story. I get to have my own story. And again, It's not attacking. It's not defensive. It's just this place that we can go where we can be our own sovereign selves as we're discovering ourselves, as we're healing ourselves. Lastly, this is the most beautiful part, especially when we're getting more and more and more healed, you get to create and design your own story. So when I'm thinking about the DMV and I say, your story's not my story, it's because I'm creating a better experience at the DMV. It's because I'm creating a better experience in the passport line. It's because I'm creating a better dating experience on the app. I am going to create my own story, my beautiful, chosen, healed story. So there's a cloudism. Your story is not my story.